how Heated Rivalry quietly became one of the most disruptive shows of its generation, and how Hudson Williams and Connor Storrie transformed what could have been just another streaming romance into a cultural moment that fully crystallized at the Golden Globes 2026, a night that didn't simply elevate their careers, but fundamentally reframed how Hollywood now understands chemistry, intimacy, and star power. By the time January 11th, 2026 arrived, something unusual had already happened, something that doesn't occur often in an industry obsessed with metrics and algorithms. Viewers didn't just like Heated Rivalry, they felt protective of it, protective of the characters, protective of the story, protective, most of all, of the fragile, volatile, deeply human connection between Shane Hollander and Ilya Rozanov. This wasn't casual fandom built on surface-level attraction or trend-driven hype. This was emotional investment, the kind that lingers long after episodes end, the kind that follows actors into interviews, onto red carpets, and eventually into the brightest spotlight Hollywood has to offer. The Golden Globes that year became the first undeniable proof that Heated Rivalry had crossed an invisible line. It was no longer just a streaming success or a buzzy adaptation with an enthusiastic fanbase. It had become a cultural force. Hudson Williams and Connor Storrie didn't arrive as nominees, industry veterans, or legacy names. They arrived as something far more unsettling to the old guard, proof that audiences, particularly younger audiences, are no longer waiting for studios or awards bodies to tell them who matters. They decide, and they had already decided. Long before awards season buzzed into existence, the show itself had been quietly challenging expectations. A sports romance centered on two rival male athletes, unapologetically intimate, emotionally raw, and resistant to easy categorization, was considered risky even in an era that prides itself on progress. Executives worried about marketability, about alienating traditional sports audiences, about whether mainstream viewers would accept a love story that refused to apologize for its intensity. But the creative team leaned into that discomfort instead of backing away from it. They refused to dilute the tension, refused to soften the desire, refused to frame queerness as either spectacle or tragedy. There was no safety net of irony, no distancing mechanism to make the story easier to consume. What emerged instead was a series that felt lived in, charged, and uncomfortably honest, a story that trusted viewers to sit with complexity instead of being spoon-fed reassurance. Hudson Williams stepped into the role of Shane Hollander with a performance defined by restraint. Shane wasn't designed to charm. He wasn't written to be accessible or immediately likable. He was guarded, stubborn, emotionally closed off, and ruthlessly competitive. Hudson didn't attempt to sand down those edges. He embraced them. He allowed Shane to be difficult, opaque, and sometimes infuriating. And in doing so, he made him real. Every glance carried meaning. Every pause felt deliberate. Shane's silences weren't empty. They were loaded with conflict, fear, and desire. Hudson trusted the audience to understand what wasn't being said, to read the emotional subtext without explanation. It was a performance rooted in confidence, one that didn't beg for sympathy but earned it slowly. Connor's Ilya Rozanov was the perfect counterbalance. Where Shane retreated inward, Ilya surged outward. Where Shane resisted vulnerability, Ilya demanded it. Connor brought a physical expressiveness to the role that made Ilya feel alive in every frame. His emotions lived on the surface, not in a simplistic way, but in a way that revealed constant internal motion. Ilya was volatile but tender, commanding yet searching. Connor navigated those contradictions with precision, never letting the character collapse into a single note. It would have been easy to play Ilya as purely fiery or purely romantic. Instead, Connor allowed him to be contradictory, inconsistent, and deeply human. That complexity became magnetic. What no one could fully predict, though, was how these two performances would collide. From early reports on set to later interviews, the story remained consistent. The chemistry was immediate, not manufactured, not forced. Immediate, the kind that makes directors pause mid-scene, the kind that makes writers reconsider future storylines, the kind that elevates material beyond what was originally imagined. Both actors later spoke openly about how that chemistry wasn't rooted in attraction alone. It was rooted in trust, in emotional availability, in the willingness to sit inside discomfort without retreating. They trusted each other with vulnerability, trusted each other with silence, trusted each other to show up fully even when scenes demanded emotional exposure. They spent time together beyond what contracts required, not because of promotional strategy or studio mandates, but because it strengthened the work. They learned each other's rhythms, boundaries, and emotional cues. That investment translated directly onto the screen. Audiences felt it instantly, even if they couldn't articulate why. Authenticity has a texture, and viewers recognize it instinctively. When Heated Rivalry premiered, the response was immediate and overwhelming. Episodes didn't simply trend, they dominated conversations. Clips circulated across platforms with breathless captions. Comment sections filled with viewers analyzing micro-expressions, body language, the space between words. Fans weren't just shipping characters, they were dissecting performances. Discussions went deeper than surface-level romance. People talked about masculinity, about repression, about desire colliding with ambition, about what it means to want something you've been taught to deny. This level of discourse around a sports romance series was rare, and it signaled something important. Audiences were hungry for emotional specificity. The show resonated especially deeply with viewers who rarely saw themselves reflected in sports narratives. Queer athletes, closeted fans, and people who had learned to compartmentalize their identities suddenly saw a story that refused to ask for that division. The characters didn't have to choose between love and success. Instead, the series explored how painful and transformative it can be to want both, and how identity doesn't neatly separate from ambition. By the time awards season approached, Heated Rivalry had already altered the landscape. Critics praised its emotional honesty. Fans praised its fearlessness. Industry insiders began to understand that Hudson Williams and Storrie weren't simply benefiting from the show's success, they were the reason it worked. They were its emotional anchors. So when their appearance at the Golden Globes was announced, anticipation surged. This wasn't just about fashion or screen time, it was about legitimacy, about whether a show born on streaming platforms and fueled by online communities could command respect in one of Hollywood's most traditional spaces. The answer arrived the moment they stepped onto the red carpet. Hudson Williams appeared with a confidence that felt earned, not rehearsed. His presence suggested someone fully aware of the moment without being overwhelmed by it. His look was elegant but daring, signaling creative self-assurance rather than conformity. Storrie matched that energy with his own composed, assured presence. He looked comfortable, grounded, and unmistakably at ease. Together, they didn't pose like co-stars fulfilling an obligation. They stood like collaborators, like people who had shared something intense and emerged aligned. Their body language was relaxed, unforced, and natural. Cameras lingered. Interviewers leaned closer. Questions came fast about chemistry, about intimacy, about the intensity of fan reaction. Neither actor deflected. Hudson spoke openly about how natural their connection felt, how different they are as people, and how those differences enriched the story rather than complicating it. He joked about the emotional density of their characters and how every breakthrough felt earned because of it. Connor responded with humor and confidence, acknowledging the attention without mocking it. He understood that fans weren't just responding to fiction, they were responding to honesty, to performances that didn't feel filtered or calculated. Then came the stage moment that solidified everything. Presenting an award at the Golden Globes is typically a transitional moment, quickly forgotten, but Hudson and Connor turned it into one of the night's most replayed highlights. Their energy was playful, relaxed, and unmistakably connected. Their opening greeting immediately disarmed the room, bridging generations of viewers with a single clever line. When they joked about audiences already seeing them naked, the laughter carried something deeper than amusement. It was recognition that their work had already embedded itself into pop culture, recognition that this wasn't a fleeting moment, but a reflection of something already established. Social media erupted in real time. Clips circulated before the broadcast even ended. Fans compared their on-stage dynamic to their on-screen scenes. Commentators declared them the breakout stars of the night, despite not competing for awards. The message was unmistakable. Relevance doesn't wait for validation. What followed was a wave of attention that didn't slow down. Interviews dissected every moment. Headlines debated whether they had effectively won the Golden Globes without nominations. Fans speculated endlessly about future collaborations, future seasons, future trajectories. Through it all, Hudson and Connor remained grounded. They redirected praise toward the story, the creative team, and the audience. There was no attempt to manufacture mystery or exaggerate narratives. They acknowledged that something special had happened without rushing to define or monetize it. Behind the scenes, the industry took notice. Executives recalibrated assumptions. Casting directors reconsidered risk. Projects that once seemed too specific or too intimate suddenly felt viable. Heated Rivalry didn't just succeed, it challenged Hollywood's understanding of what mainstream audiences want. The partnership between Hudson Williams and Connor Storrie became a case study in alignment, performance, timing, trust. Their chemistry wasn't about romance alone, it was about presence, about listening, about allowing silence to carry weight, about resisting the urge to explain emotion instead of letting it exist. As conversations about future seasons and new projects continue, one truth remains undeniable. The Golden Globes 2026 marked a turning point, not because of awards handed out, but because of a shift acknowledged, a moment where the industry had to admit that stories once labeled niche now sit at the center of cultural relevance. Hudson Williams and Connor Storrie didn't simply attend the Golden Globes. They arrived carrying the weight of a story that mattered to millions, and they carried it with humor, grace, and authenticity. They didn't chase the moment, they met it. And as Hollywood continues to evolve, moments like this serve as reminders that real chemistry can't be faked, real connection can't be scripted, and real impact can't be ignored. Make sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more celebrity updates just like this.